seats, please. Thank you. We will begin. We're a little bit late, but not much. We'll luckily get caught up. My name is Ted Bowman. I'm the chairman of the Republican Party Executive Committee and party here in Pickens County, and I welcome you to the committee. Thanks, Dave. I know that's hard stuff. I would ask you, as a matter of fact, to give a round of applause, please, to all the other folks that have been here working so hard over the last couple of weeks, and particularly in the last 24 hours, to get this all together so you can enjoy the tomato sandwiches and the tacos. Round of applause. Thank you very much. I'd like to, at this time, welcome our attendees who are going to be with us today. I hope I get the names right and I don't get them all out of order. I have a boss who keeps telling me how to do this and I keep doing it wrong. You will, at one time or another, be hearing or have a chance to meet today with, hopefully, a representative from the governor, Governor D. Elizabeth Bettis, is with us today. First, the Attorney General Owens, Ryan Bergman is here. For Kim, Secretary of State, Leanne Livingston is here. We have also, thank you, and we have also local officials who are with us. I hope I got everybody right. Forgive me if I've made a mistake. But Becky Denny, Post 2 Commissioner here in Pickens County. Jerry Barnes, her counterpart from Post 1. Charlie Paris from Board of Commissioners in Gilmer County. David Lindsay, probate judge for our county area. Alan Weedington, magistrate judge who just was recently elected as the head of their professional group. Let's give him a round of applause. Daniel Bell will be assuming the school board position later this year. Steve West, Cherokee County Commissioner. And Allison Sosby, just returned. Hopefully, this afternoon, all things going according to Loyal, you will also be hearing from our two senatorial candidates who are running, Messrs. Kingston and Perdue. You'll be hearing from those who are running for the Georgia School Superintendent, Messrs. Buck and Woods. And last but not least, our ever popular District 11 Representative Rick Jasperse. So, all things according to Loyal, let's hear from today. At this time, I'd like to have a stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Statements remain standing, please, for the invocation. Most merciful Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for all Thy blessings that Thou hast given to us, to our families, and to this country. We ask that Thou will watch over us, guide us, and lead us in the troublesome times that we all face in the days to come, whether they be personal or for the country that we love. We ask this in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Amen. Be seated. At this time, I'd like to break what was to be the original order. Ask two individuals to come forward, please, for recognition. David Leister and Joyce McCormick, please. That's you. These two individuals have been a great deal of help to our county party and the activities that we've done. Specifically, Joyce has helped immeasurably with the decorations and the setup associated with this particular activity. And David has been particularly helpful when we've had parades and other gatherings, both in terms of support and decorations. And we honor them at this time with the awards of excellence from our county committee for their work. Joyce?
Thank you.
Notwithstanding my close relationship with David, I give this to him anyway. thank you. Without the contributions of people of their caliber, we could not do the things that we do. And that's most important for us to be able to get grassroots opportunities going and get things going so that we can have the kind of success that we need for our party and for our country. A quick discussion of what we're going to be seeing this afternoon. We have contested programs. We have contested situations where we have candidates that are running for major offices. Those people are going to get a chance to speak. As I've already mentioned, they're going to get about 15 minutes to speak. There's a quick Q&A after each one, so you might want to be thinking about the things you want to ask. And then we will adjourn and continue with the celebration. We're fortunate to have him here, and I'm also fortunate to have with us today the chairman of the Georgia State GOP, Mr. John Padgett, who will act as our MC in helping to direct this activity today. Please welcome Mr. Padgett. Thank you, John. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, folks. I drove down here today from Nashville. I was up there for 2 or 3 days, and I want to tell you there's some great Republicans in Tennessee. It's a red state, but nothing like the Republicans in the state of Georgia. Thank you. Out here in Pickens County, Georgia, on a Saturday morning and afternoon, trying to celebrate being an American and Republican. Not much better we can do. Thank you very much. I've had this job for about a year. It's been one of the greatest honors that I've had in my life. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed it. Almost everything that I've had to deal with, I've really enjoyed. The thing I enjoy the most, though, is getting a chance to be here with Republicans like you. When we finished the convention, by the way, how many of you were at the convention in Athens? We finished that convention. I don't know how you felt about it, but I felt like when everybody was leaving that last afternoon, that we weren't really excited about what we were doing. We had gotten beat in the presidential election in November. I don't think we were over it then. So we had a staff meeting, early staff meeting, the next day at my house. And we decided then that what we were going to do as a party, we weren't going to spend a lot of time last year because Chairman Everhart left us with a little money in the bank. We weren't going to spend a lot of time last year trying to raise money. We were going to spend time going all over this state trying to get Republicans energized, excited, and have a plan for 2014. We made 250 appearances as a staff around the state last year, all over this state. Folks, it's a big state. I had a wreck in June, bought a new Yukon in July, and it's got 45,000 miles on it now. We've been all over this state. When we got to 2014, though, we decided that we'd make a change and get into this, when we had to get into campaign season. We started raising money and started working with the candidates that were involved in our primary process. That was some kind of experience. We had, I don't know, 25 or so candidates running in 3 open house seats and for the U.S. Senate. We're now down to 2 in each of the 3 open house seats and for the U.S. Senate race. I can't tell you how happy I'm going to be, and I know these folks that are running in these runoffs are going to be happy to get there too. When we finally get through this process and end up with our candidates that we're going to get out and support and beat the Democrats this fall. But I congratulate all of them, whether they won or lost the primary, for doing what they were doing. I can't begin to tell you, folks, if you've never run a political race, especially if you've never run a political race that's statewide, how difficult the process is on you and your family. And I congratulate them all for what they do and what they have done and what they're going to do. Now let me ask a couple of questions of you. If you are a district chairman, would you please stand up? If you're a county chairman, would you please stand up? If you are on a county committee, would you please stand up? If you're running for an elected office, would you please stand up? If you hold an elected office as a Republican, would you please stand up? If you're a Republican through and through, and you bleed real red, please stand up. Now, all of you, so I knew after you listen to Ted, you were probably bored to death. No, just keep standing, keep standing. You're probably bored to death, and you need to stretch your legs already, so you've got to stretch your legs. Let me ask you one more question. How many of you ready? How many of you are ready? And how many of you are ready to kick Democrat tail this fall? Let me hear you. Thank you, sit down. What I see when I go by the state now is I see the biggest crowds that I've ever seen. Where I would normally go and there might be 30 people, there'll be 75. Where I go and there might normally be 75, it'll be 150. Look at the size of this crowd in this room today. This is what we have done around the state of Georgia as a Republican Party. This party is absolutely energized. I think there's a couple of reasons why we're energized. Number one, we've got good candidates. And then we're also in the state of Georgia, in particular, running against a young guy whose name is Carter and a lady whose name is Nunn. At least that was her name before she got married. I'm not sure that I remember what her name is as a married lady, but on the ballot it'll be Nunn. Ronald Reagan said there are several things that separate Democrats from Republicans. One is that Republicans think every day is the 4th of July. Democrats think every day is April 15th. So what do we hear out of Mr. Carter the other day? We had a quote, and he's tried to run away from this. It's kind of hard to run away from it. Anyway, he wants to try to slant this thing. And he said, basically, we're not ready for new taxes right now. Well, it's the right now that's the problem. We're not ready for new taxes, period, ever again. That's not what we're going to deal with in Georgia if we end up with a governor named Carter and a senator named Nunn. Because they're going to be clones of the folks that are in Washington right now that are providing us a great disservice in running our country. We got a president that doesn't understand the Constitution, has not a clue about the Constitution. He's supposed to be a constitutional lawyer. I don't know that he's ever read it. If he read it, he certainly doesn't understand it. He wants to rule with a pen, and by golly, he's trying to do that. A whole lot of what he's doing is absolutely unconstitutional. No question. They've got bigger problems than that. We got scandal after scandal, from Benghazi, to Fast and Furious, to IRS, to IRS, to IRS. Problems with Obamacare. It is a challenge to find much that he's doing today that is good for the country and is not unconstitutional. A challenge. That's an awful thing to have to say. I personally think that he's morally corrupt. And then you got Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi. Well, I'm concerned about them, but to be candid with you, I'm concerned about the rest of the Democrat Party. Because with all this stuff going on, this great big basket of problems that he's created, except for a little period of time when a few Democrats that were going to be running for a Senate seat and thought that because of Obamacare, they might get beat. A few of them were a little critical about Obamacare. Other than that, tell me one Democrat in an elected position in this country, either on a national level or on a state level, right, or on a local level, that has published anything that indicates they think that Barack Obama is wrong and running the country the wrong way, doing things that are unconstitutional and probably illegal. Not one. Folks, not only is the president morally corrupt, so is the party. It's about them. It's about control. It's about power. It is not about what's good for you and the American country and the American people. That's not what they're doing. That makes them as dangerous a group of people as we've ever had to deal with in this country. Ever. So, we're going to be around to an election here. We're going to pick between two guys who run against Michelle Nunn, who will go to Washington, contrary to what she says, and be a clone and work right in there with folks in the Senate. That's a real problem. We don't want that. We have a chance to take the Senate. If we take the Senate, we have a chance to neuter a lot of what Barack Obama is doing now and deflect a lot of what he's doing now, and hopefully maybe save this country at least until the point in time where we can elect a real president. We don't want to be a state. Don't send me back to an RNC meeting here in December. And we're the state where we've lost the Senate seat. Don't do that. I'm not going to go. My daddy told me years ago, there are three kinds of people in this world. Those folks that make things happen, those things that watch things happen, and those folks that say, what happened? Well, that's sort of where we were this last election. We finished that presidential election, and we were sitting around thinking, what happened? Well, we pretty well know some of the things that happened to us then. We kind of lost our way. At least many of our folks that voted Republican in the past kind of lost their way and didn't go vote. Well, here's what we're working on right now to be sure that we go get our folks out to vote this fall. How many out of you, by the way, I should have asked earlier, I don't think I've said anything that'll get in the paper today yet, but is anybody here from the press? Yeah, Mary, give me my other speech. Anybody here that can tweet? Anybody tweeting yet? There you go. You tweet already?
I was trying, there's no signal in here.
And by the way, you did say I had 35 minutes, not 3 minutes, right?
Somewhere in between. You talk about me for it.
I made a speech a while back up in Sandy Springs to a ladies group, and you know, I don't get paid much doing this job. It's the dangest 60-hour-a-week job I've had that didn't pay anything, but I enjoy it. But I do have some perks. I've got some people that help me sometimes with a speech, and I've got some people sometimes that help me with Facebooking and things, and some folks that help me with Twitter. I'm making this speech. It's a room full of, I'm saying, probably 75, on average, 65-year-old ladies. And so I asked the question, does anybody here tweet? Of course, and none of them were tweeters. But this one little 35-year-old on the back row, she said, oh, Mr. Chairman, I tweet. In fact, I'm tweeting right now. And I'm thinking, there is no telling what is coming out of this. So I got through and walked through and spoke to as many folks as I could. And I got back to this little lady and I said, did you finish your tweet? She said, yes, sir. I did. And she said, you know, right in the middle of your speech, you tweeted back. I said, you're really good. Y'all got to pay a little bit better attention to where I am and what I'm doing. I said, yeah, I can tweet just in my pocket. Yeah. That's why I kind of always want to know who's around and what they're going to record me doing. I try to stay. In fact, one of my staffers asked me the other day, he said, do you ever get calls about interviews? And I said, yeah, all the time. They said, well, you don't ever get in the paper. I said, every time I don't want to talk to them. So I don't get in the paper. I think that's a good thing. I'm not the one supposed to be in the paper. David and Jack are supposed to be in the paper. This is their season, by the way. It's not mine or the state parties. But here's some things we are doing. When we came into office, our Facebook page had 8,000 likes. Within probably 10 days, we'll be to 80,000 likes. That's not buying any. That's people that just voluntarily come to us interested in what we're doing. We did a Facebook post not too long ago. We tracked it to over 1 million Facebook accounts. It's been sent along and sent along and sent along. That gives us the ability to get to a lot of people in a hurry. We're the third largest state as far as Facebook accounts in the country. And we started out way down towards the bottom. And within, this fall we'll at least be second. We've changed completely, revamped our web page. If you haven't been on the web page, please go. Give us your email address if we don't have it so we can communicate with you. We've established 20 offices around the state. 20, and staffed them. In the past, we might have had 2 or 3 in the fall. 5 of these offices we've had since the first of the year. We've been knocking on doors in Augusta since before the first of the year. Within, by the end of this month, certainly, we will have already knocked and communicated by telephone to 50,000 households in the state. We have a new walkout that we've helped work with the RNC to produce, which is a great tool. So you don't have a piece of paper and a pencil when you're going out talking to folks in the neighborhood. You actually got something on the phone that tells you a little bit about who they are, what they are, who's there, why you need to be talking to them. It's a great program. We were the first state in the country to roll that out, by the way. We have a great relationship as a party right now with the governor. Now I say this, and he's not here, but I'm going to say it again. I really like the governor. I love Ms. Deal. If you don't know her, you need to get to know her. She is a special lady, folks. I think the governor's in Israel this morning, if I'm not mistaken. He's going to announce sometime in the next day or two another plant that's coming. I believe it's about 550 more new employees for the state of Georgia. So he's done a great job, as far as I'm concerned, working with the business community to make us the #1 state in the country that people want to come do business in. That's pretty special. Our down ticket folks, from Casey all the way down through the down ticket to Mark Butler, do a great job. We don't have anything to be ashamed of with the work they're doing in the state of Georgia. And we have a great relationship with them as far as the Georgia Republican Party is concerned. RNC, I'm not sure, I guess because I was new, exactly what our relationship might have been when I first got in this job, but I can tell you right now, it's really good. And I was kind of critical of RNC because sometimes I hadn't liked maybe who were running for president or some of the things they do in Congress and the Senate. But when I got there, I discovered that most of the RNC, which by the way is only 168 folks. 168 folks run this party on the national level. When I got there, I determined that the majority of them were extremely conservative people. And the RNC has been most generous in the state of Georgia in helping fund a lot of the activities that we do. One of the things that they have helped fund is our minority engagement program that Leo Smith runs. We are making great strides, great inroads in the black community to convert them from old Democrat voters to new Republican voters. And folks, it's extremely important. Let's say nationwide, we finally get to the point, and I think it's coming, that we end up with 25% of the black vote in this country. The Democrats can't ever win again. They can't win again. And that's how close we are. I'm not sure what the vote will turn out to be in Georgia. My goal in Georgia this year was just 10%, but I think it's going to be greater than that. Leo does a great job, and it's because of the RNC giving us an opportunity to have the funds available to do that job. Tell you about a couple other things that are coming up. in relationship to what Leo's doing, we're going to have a Black Republican conference in the Lake Fayette in Atlanta. We think we can put 1,000 Black Republicans in one room, and if we do, we'll be making national headlines. We just recently, you might have read this, you might not have, but it's important to me. We just recently reestablished a Black Republican club at Morehouse College. Great bunch of young Republicans. I'm proud of Leo for doing it, but by the way, we're going to have more of those around Black colleges in the state of Georgia, probably by the end of the year to announce. The most important thing probably to me about that little club at Morehouse was about 35 kids. The first thing they wanted to do, because they had figured out that there was not an American flag at Morehouse College. Wow. They have taken it upon themselves not to ask me or the party for any money, not to ask us to raise any money. They're raising the money. Slowly but surely, they're raising the money to buy a flagpole and a flag, and they work with the university to have an appropriate place to place it. And I can't tell you, folks, how important that is. If you don't think people that are Black or Hispanic or Asian or Jewish, and on, don't believe in the same things that we do, you're mistaken. They believe in the Constitution, they believe in the Bill of Rights. I know the Democrats don't, they're still trying to take my box of guns away from me. They believe in jobs, the opportunities, the options. They believe in freedom of choice as far as education is concerned. They believe what we believe. They don't believe you need to have higher taxes to accomplish all of this. So what we're doing with our minority engagement is extremely important. Also, and this is something that's kind of dear to my heart, and I hope you'll come and join us in August, about the third weekend in August, I believe. We'll have our first ever Second Amendment Day. It'll be a big deal. We'll have bands and speakers. We'll be on a farm down in, believe it or not, the guy on the farm in Fulton County's got 1,200 acres. We'll be on a farm down there in Fulton County. It'll be pretty easy for you to get to, so we want you to come and enjoy that. It'll be a great opportunity. But I'm going to close with one thing. I'm going to close with 2 words. Before I get to those 2 words, though, I'm going to tell you. We had 5 million Republicans did not go vote in the last election. That's how we got Barack Obama. When I first got this job, I'd go to these meetings and people would be harping at me about it. And I said, well, how'd that work out for you? You didn't go vote. You elected Barack Obama. Probably the biggest political mistake this party's ever made. So, I don't care whether you're a Tea Party Republican, I don't care whether you're a Liberty Republican, I don't care if you're a right-wing Christian Republican, I don't care if you're a left-to-center Republican, I don't care whether you're a moderate Republican, I don't care how you cut your hair, whether you got a beard, or what color you are. I got 2 words for you as far as the state of Georgia is concerned. Go vote. When we get to this fall, go vote. If you want to see some sad folks, when we finally hash this thing out between Kingston and Perdue, and one of those guys doesn't get elected, and we figured out some segment of this party decided, oh heck, we're not going to go vote. We can't use you. If you don't go vote, it's nice for you to come take up space and eat the tomatoes, but you got to go vote. One more thing you can do for me. Give me 20 minutes a day being a Republican. 20 minutes a day. What I mean? Talk to somebody about what it means to be a Republican. Well, I don't know how to do that. Sure you do. All you got to do is mention the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and jobs, and pro-choice, and pro-family. You know exactly what you are. 20 minutes a day, either on Facebook, or on emails, or on telephones, or people that you work with. Give me 20 minutes a day. If you give me 20 minutes a day, we'll go a long way. You can also get on, I always have to make this pitch. You can also get on our website and join our grassroots club. This is $10, $12, $15 a month. Put it on a credit card, send it into the party. We need the money. We don't do what we do. Don't think that this is an inexpensive process. It's an expensive process. So we need your help financially, whatever little bit that it might be. So I thank you very much for having an opportunity to be here. All right, for the real fun part of what we're doing now, I've got the opportunity to introduce to you a good friend, great businessman, guy that make good United States Senator. I think that he's got 15 minutes, so whoever's got the clock, I've heard him speak before, so be sure he doesn't run over 15 minutes. Mr. David Perdue.
Thank you, John. No, it won't take 15 minutes to tell you the truth. Hey, I want to thank one other person. Mary, thank you. God only knows what she puts up with while he's putting up 45,000 miles on his truck. He offices downstairs from our campaign office, so we have a duel going on. I think we got about 43,000, 44,000 on our truck too. So, you know, I've never done this before. I got to tell you, it's a little bit like that Western song. I wish I didn't know now what I didn't know then. But in all seriousness, let me ask you a serious question. How many of you think we've got a mess in Washington? Okay, that's easy. Well, whose fault is it? Yeah. Not yours, but ours collectively. We have 10.5 million people in the state of Georgia, John, I think, and about 600,000 is all that voted in this primary. It's off cycle, I get that. And in this runoff, fewer than that will vote. I've seen numbers 400, 450,000. We've got to do better than that. Because the number one objective in this race is not what's happening on July 22nd. John's already said it. The number one thing in this race is in November, we cannot give Harry Reid one more vote in the United States Senate. Period. So whoever wins in July 22nd, we've got to send somebody that we know is going to be able to prosecute the record in the last 6 years, that will not let Georgians get hoodwinked by this moderate dialogue that you're going to hear coming from a very liberal young lady who has no experience. You realize that we have more community organizers in the United States Senate today than we have people who have any business experience, any free enterprise system. We have 57 lawyers in the United States Senate. We have 13 community activists, community organizers. But we only have about 10 people who have ever served any time in the free enterprise system. And even those people were in elected office, have been in elected office longer than they were in business. So it's no wonder when you see Dodd-Frank and Obamacare and what the EPA is doing right now, the unintended consequences, and sometimes intended consequences, are totally unacceptable to our way of life. Guys, I've spent my life running businesses. I grew up in Middle Georgia. My mom and dad were school teachers. And I got to tell you, when we didn't get Romney elected in 2012, I just was distraught. And we started, I became very depressed for a little while. Well, finally I said, look, if somebody doesn't stand up and do something, we're going to lose the opportunity to turn this thing around. My wife, Bonnie, who's back here in the, what color is that, Bonnie? Pink or something? I don't know. We're dead serious about this. But the thing that pulled me in here, y'all, is this economic crisis. This debt is out of control. And there's a very simple way to measure it. Every household in here, every one of us, our share of that debt, if you include the future unfunded liabilities, is $1 million per household. Now, our federal government has given us a $1 million credit card. Well, that's really what they've done. And I just think it's unnecessary. But when you realize that 36 United States senators have been in elected office for more than 30 years in one form or another in Washington, I just don't think you have any way to not understand why we're in such a mess. The drive to get reelected trumps all the other interests in Washington. I can tell you that right now. Let me just describe this to you. I run a small business. I've run Reebok, I've run Dollar General in my career. We've lived outside the country, but I will tell you this. The toughest job I've ever had is this partnership that I have in this little business I have right now. We're exporting U.S.-made products into China. Okay? And the compliance issues that I have, the regulatory issues I have, the tax issues I have right now are doing everything to put us out of business. And I see so many people in Georgia right now who are facing the same things. Do you realize that our national debt is the greatest threat to our national security? And yet, how many people are really doing anything to solve that? We just passed the budget last year in Washington. What did it do? It took $20 billion out of the budget. That's $10 billion. That's over 2 years. That's only $10 billion a year. Do you realize our problem is 100 times greater than that? I got in here because I believe the solution is very simple. Stop the spending. Okay? We have $480 billion of redundant agencies. But we've got to grow the economy in order to help solve this debt crisis without a tax increase. And that's the solution. Grow the economy. Look, we did it in the 80s. What did Ronald Reagan do? He sold us hope. He cut taxes. He got the economy going. And guess what? We had 25 years of economic boom in this country because we got back to the principles the Republican Party was founded on to start with. That's economic opportunity, fiscal responsibility, and limited government. But let me ask you a question. In 2000 and 2006, when we were in charge as a party, where was our landmark health care bill? Where was our landmark national energy policy bill? Where was our tax reform bill? Guys, we don't have to look far to see who's responsible. The people who have been in charge. If this were a business, why would you expect the people who created the mess to fix the problem? I just believe it's very simple. If you want change, I think an outside perspective helps. But more than that, you've got to have somebody that represents the conservative values of Georgia. I grew up in Middle Georgia, and I was taught if you didn't have it, you don't spend it. And it just seems to me that we've gotten away from those core principles, and that's why we got back in here. And I just believe that if we want to turn this thing around, we've got to develop a hope about our future. And if we can put a man on the moon in 10 years, if we can bring down the Soviet Union, the strength of our economy and the power of our ideas, why can't we solve this crisis, this debt crisis, and get America working again? In Georgia, right now, and this is the thing, when you run around Georgia like you're doing, you talk to people. If I ask a person, how many of you know somebody today out of work? How many of you know somebody out of work? Okay? How many of you have kids that go off to work, maybe go to school, and then come back home? 1 in 3 people in the United States right now are either unemployed, underemployed, or have actually stopped looking for work. It doesn't have to be that way. Ladies and gentlemen, I think Monty and I got in this race to give us a choice. We've got Jack Kingston, a great guy, came through the primary. He and I came through the primary. He's a 22-year congressman. If you like what's going on in Washington, vote for him. If you want an alternative, somebody's going to represent our conservative values, and somebody that will go up and actually make a difference to get the economy going, I've offered ourselves up to try to do that. I believe if we want different results in Washington, we have to send a different type of person to Washington. With that, I'm going to close because I want to allow plenty of time for you guys to get back on schedule and have more information. I'm going to go have one myself. Thank you very much, John. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anybody have a question today? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just curious because we know the way Mr. Kingston votes. I mean, he's a great guy, right? Some of the votes I don't like. Do you have any place how you would have voted on some of these issues? Because that's where the real question is, how are you going to vote when you get there? Would you publish that to us?
Absolutely. I'll give you one. In 3 years when Congress had to put their names on earmarks, Congressman Kingston actually voted for more earmarks than the rest of the Georgia Republican delegation combined. I would not have done that. I will make sure that we don't let earmarks come back. I'll stand up and fight for that, for sure. Yes, we'll put more. Yes, sir, in back.
I read on your Facebook page that you made a commitment to only run for 2 terms. You would impose your own term limits, is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. I'm running for 2 reasons. One, I believe we've got to have term limits because I think the root of all evil in Washington are people who are trying to get reelected. Look at the money. Look at the PAC money. I mean, just in this race, look at the money and the influence and outside money has on our politics in the state of Georgia. It's profound. I will absolutely fight for term limits, but look, let's be realistic. There's been a bill before the Senate for a few years that says, look, 2 terms in the Senate, 3 in the House. But it's not going to get to a vote. So I'm going up there with a rolling pulpit to make sure that all of us realize, I don't think many people realize how many people have been up there for as long as they have been. 36 U.S. senators have been in elected office up there for more than 30 years. There's one gentleman who's been there 54 years. So I absolutely commit to you that I would not stay there longer than 2. And regardless of whether we have a term limit bill or not, I will turn myself out. Just like Bill Frist did, just like others have done. Coburn's doing it right now. It's the right thing to do.
Young dad that I've known for a long time, I also consider him to be a great friend. There are a lot of nice things you can say about Jack Kingston, but one of the most important to me is that he spent a good bit of his time trying to grow up in Athens, Georgia. It's my hometown. Jack?
Thank you very much. It's great to be back here in Pickens County. Libby and I came up here last year, really enjoyed the tomatoes, and I wasn't sure if she was going to be here today, and she said, well, I could skip your speech, but I'm not going to skip the tomatoes. So we just appreciate all the hospitality that y'all have shown us as we visited around here. And let me just say this. You know, I'm scared to death about America. I know that you are, and I know that's why you are active in the Republican Party and the conservative cause. I worry about the nanny state. I worry about government overreach. I worry that big spending and out-of-control regulations are stealing our freedom away, stealing our opportunities. And that my children and your children and these fine young people sitting right over here aren't going to know the America that you and I know. That's why I'm leaving what would be just about a certain re-election and a safe House seat to enter into a political street brawl to earn the right to fight to change America in the United States Senate. And I'm not going over there just to hold a gavel. I'm going over there to turn America around. And that's what I've done in the House. Now, you know, my opponent does say, it reminds folks always, I've been up there. Well, you know what? I have been up in the House a long time. And I've been up there fighting for you and fighting for Georgia values. And that's why the NRA, in which I have an A+ rating, has endorsed my candidacy. That's why the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has endorsed my candidacy, because I support jobs. That's why Sean Hannity and Newt Gingrich are on board. That's why John Linder, the author of the Fair Tax, has endorsed my candidacy. That's why the National Right to Life has awarded me a 100% voting record. And sir, you asked about where would we bury. You know, on abortion, it's a tough issue. But I've stood up there on those fights. Dick Cheney called me during the Wall Street meltdown and asked me personally to vote for the Wall Street bailout. And I'm like y'all, I'm an old-fashioned American. Which means when the President of the United States asks you as an American citizen to do something, there's only one answer, right? Well, your mom and dad taught you, the answer would be yes. But I told Vice President Cheney, you put me in an awkward position because I'm about to do something I was raised not to do, and that is to say no to the President of the United States. And generally, Vice President calling you the President might as well be calling you. But Mr. Vice President, I think those folks need to go ahead and lose that money because they weren't going to share with us their profits. Why should we share with them their losses? And they need to bring in those excesses. The point that I'm making is I'm tested because I've been a fighter out there on the front line of the conservative cause for a long time. We got to change this country around. I was there when I saw Newt Gingrich pull in the northeastern liberal, more moderate Republicans with the southern social conservative Republicans with the western libertarian Republicans and get behind something called the Contract with America. What I've been talking about, and the reason why I think we have done so well reaching out to Tea Party Republicans, Libertarian Republicans, and precinct level Republicans, and folks from all over Georgia, I believe it's because we're talking about an American renewal. It's a 6-point plan. Begins with a strong national defense. I've represented 5 out of our 8 military installations. I don't ever want our servicemen and women to have to fight a fair fight. I want them to go up against any enemy, anytime, any place, and you and I will know what the outcome's going to be. And that is, as Ronald Reagan would say, we win, they lose. Number 2, we got to have fiscal responsibility. I fought for the balanced budget amendment. And you know, we passed it out of the House. It failed by 1 vote in the Senate many years ago. But sometimes these things, you gotta just keep going back and back and fighting. I've represented a lot of agriculture. I'm very proud to represent many of America's farmers, Georgia farmers. $76 billion industry in our state, by the way. But I cut spending at the USDA when I chaired the committee $3.6 billion. And I want my opponent and all my friends here to know a lot of it was simply cutting out earmarks. And I've done earmarks. Let me give you an example of one. An IED simulator for those 3rd Infantry soldiers who were going to Iraq and Afghanistan to get their legs and their arms blown up. I wanted them to be trained that if their Humvee hit an IED, that they know how to act. I also got an earmark for the nuclear submarines going out of Kings Bay, a demagnetizer so the bad guys won't know where they are. I fought for the hospital at Fort Stewart. I fought for barracks at Fort Stewart. And I'm not going to apologize for standing up and doing what was right for America's fighting men and women. Critics got out of hand numerically and in substance. And when it did, I authored the first moratorium on earmarks. And went against my party leadership and went against the Democrat leadership to do it. We got 130 co-sponsors on the bill. It was the first bill that put the ban on earmarks in order, and that was back in 2007. We've got to have fiscal responsibility. Number 3, on our American renewal, we've got to push back on the regulatory overreach. I voted 40 times to repeal Obamacare, and I'm not going to rest until we get rid of that Number 4, we got to have North American energy. Do you remember what gas prices were when President Obama was sworn in?
What did he find?
$1.87. This is a very intelligent group. I'm sorry I don't have a door prize to give you. We need to remind every Georgian and every American while they're filling up their gas tank at $3.60 a gallon that it was $1.87 when the president was sworn in. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to build the Keystone Pipeline, and we need to start developing our energy. Number 5, we got to have workfare over welfare. We've got to have folks in America who know and understand our workforce, our labor. And that's why I fought so hard to deepen the Savannah River, because 352,000 jobs are related to that. Now we've got it done. We need one signature from the Corps of Engineers to start dredging. Well, we'll send a signal internationally that we are open for business. Y'all come to the state of Georgia. And number 6, as I said earlier, I'm endorsed by John Linder, author of the Fair Tax. I'm very proud of that. I support the fair tax. You may support the flat tax, but we should be united under the banner of tax simplification, because we spend 6 billion man-hours a year complying with the tax code. That's time in which we could be spending on building better mousetraps, producing cheaper widgets, if you will, and curing diseases. It's wasted time. That's why we need tax simplification. We need a tax code that's transparent, simple, and stimulates business growth. These are the 6 things in which our candidacy is based. These are the 6 things which I believe America needs in a long list of needs. But I think that we can get the job done with. Now, there's all kinds of other issues out there that we're working for and we're fighting for, and I'd love to be on your team. If David and I agree on one thing, we agree on a lot of things, as a matter of fact, but there's one thing that we both agree on, is on July 23rd, we will both be on the same team. And that's the Republican team, and that's America's team, because we are going to keep this seat Republican in the United States. Thank you very much.
Folks, you know, you talk around to people and you hear people say, well, I'm blessed because this, I'm blessed because that. I am truly blessed as your state party chairman to have 2 guys like David Perdue and Jack Kingston in a runoff for this Senate seat that belongs to the Republican Party. They're great guys. Either of them will beat Michelle Nunn and make a great son. to hear now from our state school superintendent candidates. That'll run on. Mike Buck will be first. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Buck. Well, I have a secret weapon in here. Larry, where's Larry? Larry, wait a minute. Larry absolutely showed my wife, and there was no way I was not coming to this event. He called me personally and said, I better be here. He won her over. I want to be here anyway. I want to thank you for inviting us, because my biggest friend is an informed voter. And you are, because you're here, informed voters. I'm going to share with you just very briefly who I am, what I'm about. I'm like you in every race except state school superintendent. I've already made up my mind in that race, okay? But I'm evaluating candidates every day. And there are a couple of things that I want to know about candidates for any position. One of the first things I want to know is, are they good people? Are they quality people that you can trust? Can you take what they say to the bank? That's very important to me. I think it should be important to you. The second thing I look for is, can they do the job? Do they have the skills, the training, the experience to do the job? I can't vote for anybody, but the answer to those questions are yes. Yes, they're quality people. Yes, you can take what they say to the bank. Yes, they have the skills to do the job. I'm running on a platform of character, credentials, and commitment. When I say character, talk about my own character, because that's vitally important. I'm a Christian. It's on my website. It's how I make decisions. At the heart of who I am. But it's also the character we have to develop in our young people. You know, we work hand in glove with the Chambers of Commerce across the state to develop pathways, and pathway courses, and develop the standards that we're going to teach in those pathway courses. The most uniform feedback we got across this great state were on the soft skills. The soft skills. Business industry want to know, young people coming out of our schools, think it's a good idea to show up on time, on a regular basis, dressed appropriately, can get along with their co-workers, and they're drug-free. That's what we heard consistently from our business and industry leaders. That's one of the things that they're after. We have got to develop those soft skills in our young people, and you can do that. There are overt things you can do to help develop that. At the end of the day, after our young people spend 12 years with us, do they become the kind of young people we want? Living in our neighborhoods, taking care of us as we get older. How about this one? Dating our sons and daughters. We've got to work on those things. Now, I'm so competitive, it hurts. I was a high school principal. I wanted us to be the champions of everything. If it's Tiddlywinks, I wanted Rome High School to be the Tiddlywinks champions of the world. The academic side of things, I fully recognize we got to be good at it. We've got to move the needle. And I'm going to give you some statistics you may not have heard on how we're doing in academics. I know we have not arrived, but we are moving in the right direction, and we need to continue to do things, partnering with our local districts, I think strong and local control, to continue the momentum as we move forward. So character, my character, the character of the young people. Credentials. In this race, credentials matter. Credentials matter. I heard some go dogs a while ago. I'm a tri-dog. I spent a lot of time in Athens too, Mr. Chairman. I got my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate from the University of Georgia in educational administration. I got my specialist degree from Augusta College. Got those 4 degrees and 31 years of experience in the field. I've been a teacher, a coach, an elementary principal, a high school principal. I've been a central office employee. For the past 3.5 years, I've been the chief academic officer of the Department of Education. I've lived it. Now, I recently spoke to the Georgia School Board Association. I know we've got an elected school board member in the building. And I closed with this commentary at the Georgia School Board Association. That group is responsible for the recruitment and hiring of most local school superintendent vacancies. Most of them use GSBA. Well, in my closing, what I did is I went to the GSBA website and I printed off the current vacancies for local school superintendents. When I printed them off, I highlighted the required qualifications and the preferred qualifications.
And then I read those. And if you compare those required credentials, those preferred credentials, to my credentials and the credentials of the three people left in the race, one on the Republican side, two on the Democratic side, there's only one candidate in the race that would even qualify for an interview at a local district. That candidate is me. I've lived it for 31 years. I know what it takes at the local level to move education forward. And then the last thing that I mentioned was commitment. You know, I was stunned, frankly, I was stunned when I went to qualify for the race and for state school superintendent. Apparently, the only qualification you had to have to get in that race was be a resident of Georgia and pay your qualifying fees. You know, Mr. West and I, we had 7 other competitors in the race. It's a little bit unusual now for us just to be the 2 of us, because the last time we came to this area, there were 9 of us in the race. I think you have to look at the commitment of the people involved in this process. Now, I told you I've been an elementary principal, high school principal, and central office person. In my district in Rome City Schools, not too far from here, I was assistant superintendent. And one of my roles at the beginning of the school year was to inspire our district administrators when they came back to school, getting ready to greet their teachers and prepare them for the coming school year. Well, this particular year was a special year for me because it was the first time my kids will be public education. And I was having trouble. The views was not moving me, and I wanted to come up with something that would inspire our administrators and hopefully get them to inspire their teachers. I went on vacation with my family. We got 20 girls. We adopted. They're 10 now. They were about to enter kindergarten in West End Elementary in Rome City Schools. Little man, he's 8 now. We went on vacation, and I couldn't come up with what I wanted to say. And about 2 a.m. that night in Pickens Forge, I woke up from the sound sleep, and it dawned on me that I was about to turn over my babies to public education. It started hitting home with me. I started thinking about what I wanted for my own children. Well, I woke up, I flipped on the fireplace. It had that little switch you could turn on the gas lights. I didn't want to wake up my children. I finally got them to sleep. I found a coloring book and some crayons because I didn't want to wake anybody. But the thoughts were flowing about what I wanted for my children. I want to share with you what I wrote that night and what I ultimately shared with all of the administrators in Rome City Schools, because it gets at the heart of what I believe we can do in public education. Here it is. I have to read it because I get emotional, I get choked up because I'm thinking back to when I was turning my babies loose in public education. What I want for my children, I want to know that my children will be safe each day. I think we all want that. I think parents deserve to know when they drop their kids off in the morning, they're going to get them back in at least that same condition that night. That loving and caring adults will do everything they can to make sure school is safe and a nurturing environment. I want to know that the teachers I leave my children with will love them and treat them as they would their own children. I want to know that high expectations will be set for my children and that the adults in the building will do everything they can to help my children succeed. I want to know that diversity will not just be tolerated in my children's school, but celebrated. I want to know that when my children stumble and fall along the way, and they will, that a loving adult will be there to help them up again. I want to know that the teachers will view their relationship with me and with my wife as a partnership with the goal of helping my children reach their potential. I want to know that my children's experiences at West End will give them roots and a solid foundation to grow from and wings to help them soar through uncharted heights. Who are my children? They are Anna, Christina, and Dylan, and Shaniqua, Israel, Carlos, Desiree. They're all boys and girls who walk through our doors August 3rd. If the lens we look through in evaluating all that we do is it good enough for my child? I know we will accomplish great things. I believe that with all my heart. I believe every school should be safe. I believe every child deserves a quality teacher. Most important variable in any classroom is the classroom teacher once the kids enter the door on how students will do. I believe that we've got to have world-class instruction, caring adults, and I believe that every decision we make at the state department level should be, is it in the best interest of boys and girls? I promise you that the litmus test for every decision I make will be, is it good for boys and girls? And I'm going to close with this comment. I think the single best predictor of future success in any position is past performance. Did you hear what I said? The single best predictor of future success is past performance. Mine is out there for all to see. Got a proven track record of success at every level of education. I told you I was going to give you some good news about education. A lot of folks don't want to hear this. Some folks throw rocks at me when I share this. Hear me when I say this. I am not a status quo candidate. I know that we have not arrived in public education. There is work to do. I believe I'm the person to lead it forward. But I want to share this. At the end of 2012, I was riding in the car, carpooling from Rome to Atlanta. 75 miles driveway from me. That's what I've been doing for 3.5 years because I love the work. SAT results in this state have gone up 7 points. The national average has gone down 2. So Georgia made a significant jump that year on the SAT. And I said in the carpool, I think that's the largest single jump that I've seen in 30 years in education in Georgia. And I also think we went up on every national assessment. So I got to the office and I started checking. I checked how many states went up on SAT. Well, about half that year did. About half. Then I overlaid that with how many went up on the ACT, which is another big college entrance exam. And I took those states off, and then several fell off. And then we looked at advanced placement exams. For those of you that aren't familiar with advanced placement, AP exam, college level courses taught in high school. If students score 3, 4, 5 on those, they get college credit. It's a great predictor of how young people will do when they get off into college. We went up on the advanced placement results that year as well. And I know some people right now, I know what's going on, so they can start near the bottom. There's only one place to move, is to move up. Well, you know, on the advanced placement results, we're number 9 in the country. It's nothing to be sneezed at. Not number 1 where I want to be, but number 9 in the country. So we went up on AP. And then the National Assessment of Educational Progress, that year we tested reading, math, and science. Georgia went up in every single one of those. One state, ladies and gentlemen, one state went up on each of those assessments. That state was Georgia. We're making progress. I want to continue that progress. Hear me well, I will listen to what you say. We will try to take what you tell us, make the necessary adjustment, keep what is good, modify what is not, and move forward with public education in Georgia. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Here's my question.
Got time for one.
You stated that you like local control. Yes, I think you probably agree that we're rapidly losing local control. My question to you is, do you support Common Core and why?
I support the current standards that we're teaching, so yes, that will be Common Core. I've been on record since I announced that I'm in favor, but let me give you the rest of the story. First of all, my opinion is not the most important. The governor's office, the legislature, the Chamber of Commerce, the PTA, our military leaders, and 70 to 75% of our teachers support them. The why is because, first of all, they're good standards. We're moving in the correct direction. Not perfect. Second of all, we can continue to make whatever adjustments we need to make without throwing them out and starting over. If someone came in and attempted to change, and I say attempt because some of my competitors believe just because they don't like something they can come in and change it. There's a whole process. There's a state-appointed Board of Education, the governor appointed, the governor's office, the legislature. There's a whole process involved. But if such a change occurred starting next school year, and by the way, that could never occur with the process that's in place. If it occurred, it would be the fourth set of standards that our children had to be taught under, our teachers have had to try to teach. In about a decade, that is blatantly unfair to the students and to the teachers. The teachers are clamoring for stability, for resources to do a good job with what we already have in place. That's why I want to stay the course, but with a critical review process to make sure that we're getting it right. We're doing that right now with teachers across the state. Thank you.
Take one more.
I heard a couple military leaders. I was in the room when the legislation was being proposed, and there was representation that the guy who spoke was there representing over 400 generals or admirals. The military is strongly supportive of these standards because the military kids are those that are most disadvantaged if there are radically different standards from one state to the next, because the children of our military, through no fault of their own, have to go across state lines. And it's blatantly unfair to those children to face radically different standards when they move from one military base, one military institution to another. Those kids suffer. So that was the group, representing 400 generals and admirals that spoke. And for the record, I was in the room when that vote was taken. 68 people spoke, 60 of the 68 were in favor of the standards we're currently teaching. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mike.
Richard Woods.
Candidate for state school superintendent.
Look forward. Can everybody hear me back here in the back? Okay, if not, I won't use the mic. I'll just use my coaching voice, okay? So I can speak a little bit louder and necessarily won't be pinned down if I'm not doing anything. But if you can't hear me, please let me know. But my name is Richard Woods. I'm running for state school superintendent in 2010. You may have seen my name on the ballot. I was a candidate for the same office. But a little bit about my background. For 22 years, I did teach in the Irwin County school system down in South Georgia. I guess I'm what you call a flatlander down there. We deal with gnats and fire ants, and that's about, about the highs of the mountains we get down there. But it is something that I've had the pleasure of doing with, and this is something that I take, very much pride in as far as being an educator. But for 14 years, I served as a high school social studies teacher, coach. Worked within that system itself, 8 years as an administrator, serving as an assistant principal, K-5 curriculum director, hospital homebound system director, homeschool system director, middle school, high school, alternative school principal, pre-K principal. So that has given me pre-K through 12th grade experience at the school level. So everything I talk about, these are things that I've had to implement, not to tell people what to do, but again, the things that have come down from the state, from the feds, even from the central office. So for 22 years, day in and day out, I dealt with our kids, I dealt with our teachers, I dealt with our parents, and that's what I continue to work on, because those are the people that matter most when we look at education itself. And so that's kind of the background that I bring to education. And I do have a small business background as well. Prior to getting into education, I was a lead purchasing agent for a national international laser company out of Kennesaw, Georgia, Newark, New Jersey. Our corporate office is over in Europe. Today I'm a small business owner. So I bring both business and education experience to this plate. And again, I would encourage you that if there are questions about qualification, go to my website, woodsforsuper.com. You will see the entire breadth of what I've done. If you suffer from insomnia, that's a good place to start, because it is something that will take you a while to go through and read. So I encourage you to that and compare my qualifications with anyone that is in the race period. So I think you will find out that I meet those qualifications, but more importantly, I meet the qualifications of the state of Georgia and our Constitution. So that's why I'm here running across the board. Now, looking at Georgia education, where do I believe that we need to start and look at that? Now, first and foremost, I am the only candidate left in the race, and I'm happy that I can say that at least we have some representation that stood against Common Core. I was against it in 2006. As a candidate, would race to the top, and again, that was the mechanism that helped bring that into our state. Now, looking at that, why do I oppose, Common Core? Why do I oppose the race to the top grant? First and foremost, you must understand, I will be a constitutionally elected official. And that means that I will follow two things to the letter. It will be the United States Constitution, it will be the Georgia Constitution. Now, the United States Constitution tells me one thing. In Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, it lists enumerated powers. It says, and this is what our founding fathers said, this is what you get to do as the federal government. Education is not mentioned there, okay? Now, I've read the Constitution. So that lets me know that I go to the 9th and I go to the 10th Amendment, and that tells me that education now is reserved to the states and to the people. And because of that, I look at the Georgia Constitution in Article 8, which I've read in its entirety. And it is our section that deals with education in Georgia. Now, more importantly, that tells me that education belongs at the local level. And I, as your next state school superintendent, I'm not here to tell you how to run your school system in Pickens County, but I'm here to help you run, to make sure you have the resources, make sure you have the personnel, so that you can adequately educate your children. Because that moves me to the next point. When we focus on the child, what I do know, and again, something that came out of the No Child Left Behind era, one size does not fit all, okay? Kids are different. Your children that you teach up in Pickens County are different than the ones I have down in Irwin County, whether it's at the coast, north, south, east, west. But you have to have that ability to move and adjust and to meet those needs of the child. Now, one of the things I look at that I haven't shared is that growing up, I am a military child, okay? I'm a military brat. My dad served in the Navy for 20 years. So for the better part of my life, until I turned about 13 or 14, we moved from East Coast to West Coast. And I can tell you as a child that went through the school system, what allowed me to succeed was giving the teacher the ability to take me where I was at and move me forward. And what you will find out across the state, what you'll find out, what state you look at, graduation requirements are different. That has nothing to do with our standards and things of that nature. So you have to have that flexibility. And that's what I want to make sure that we as a state have the flexibility. Because when a child enters schools, they do not read at the same level, they are not on math at the same level, they are completely different. So we have to make sure that within that system, we have the flexibility to give our school systems, give our teachers that sliding scale. Don't look at necessarily the grades, but let's look at the ability of our kids and make sure that they meet those criteria that we need. And that's why, I tell you, I want to personalize education, not standardize it. I want to give our kids, academic choice. One of the things we used to do well in Georgia was that we used to have things such as our vocational trade school, type things that we used to do. We need to get back to that and offer our kids, that choice across the board. Work with our technical schools, have STEM programs, have business, apprenticeships, so that we can work together and pull that together. Do not lock our kids in a path and say, if you start down this path, it will be the only one you can attain. Because I think, for you as an adult, for me as a person that went to school, I can tell you that when I was going to school, that the one thing I looked at is that what I wanted to be varied from week to week to week to week. But we have to give our kids the skill set that will allow them to succeed. Not to say necessarily raise our graduation rate, but I want every child that leaves school to have a diploma from Georgia High School. But that means a diploma that gives them the ability to continue their education. We do not need remediation, okay, in math and reading. We look at what we are doing at our colleges and our technical schools. We have a lot of remedial classes with that. That is unacceptable. That someone graduating from a Georgia high school is having to take remedial classes. And so we have to address that and put that in the basics. And that puts me, where do we begin? We need to begin at the K-5 area. We need to make sure that as our kids leave there, that they are proficient in three things: reading, writing, and arithmetic. Those are the foundational skills that build for success, whether it's middle school, high school, and beyond. As a social studies teacher, my kids knew content. Okay, they knew content. The concern I always had was that they could not read and read with comprehension. And so that is one of the things that I am very adamant about, that as your next state school superintendent, I will work hard and I will make diligent, moves to make sure that Georgia is the most literate state in our nation. Because you look at one thing about reading, and you look at any test that you take in high school, middle school, elementary, and beyond, the one common denominator is you have to do what? You have to read. And so we have to make sure that we double down to make sure that our kids can read and read proficiently. Because when you're hired by someone, you know, they want people that can read. Their technical manuals, their own screen, whatever it is. We have to have a very strong literate state. And again, the numbers that are coming out right now are not that great as far as, you know, where we at literate level. So let's work with nonprofit, profit groups to put books into the hands of our parents. Do some things, you know, we're working with our public libraries. It's a great resource that has gone largely neglected. Those are things that we used to do in Georgia when I was growing up. And so we have to make sure that we do that and do that with a purpose. Now, looking at that, foundationally speaking, we have to do a better job of teaching some other things. Specifically, the history of our nation. Not the progressive or revisionist stuff that's coming out there, and we see a lot. Because that means that when we teach them, they know where we came from. We have nothing to be ashamed of as a nation. There's something called American exceptionalism, and that is what we should be teaching in our schools, to make sure that our kids are proud to be an American, that they know what it means to be an American. That means we study the Constitution, we study the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers. You know, these things which our founding fathers and our principles were built on, those are the things we need to teach and teach. We talk about, you know, looking at what do we read, and I think, you know, look there, it says, well, Richard, if we're focusing so much on reading, focusing so much on math, does that give us time? Well, that's the stuff we read about. We read about Washington, we read about Madison, we read about Daniel Boone, and these people that were great Americans, Abraham Lincoln, you know, and across the board. You know, we want to make sure that we have that skill set. We need to make sure that we also have a good personal finance class as well. Our kids need to know what it means to live in a capitalistic society, how to succeed in a capitalistic society, how to save, how to invest, how to buy a car smartly. You know, those are things that are soft skills that we need to make sure that we need to do a better job prepared, because that will actually have an impact on learning. It will actually have an impact on their life. And so that's what we need to look at and focus on. That as your next state school superintendent, I will do that. And you know, as I kind of close here, we cannot neglect the teachers. Now again, that is one thing that my wife, she asked me when I became an administrator. She said, Richard, do me one favor, never forget what it's like to be a teacher. You know, because as a teacher, I made sure that I never forgot what it's like to be a student. But we need to make sure that we give our teachers that time that they need to address those individual needs of the kids. That means we need to cut out some of this testing, we need to cut out some of this data collecting, and this paperwork. We need to allow them to do what they went to school to do, and that's to close their door and teach. And I guarantee you, if we take their role of being away from data collectors and inputters and allow them to teach, we will see good things take place across the state. Like I tell you, when we look at this, the old Georgia Performance Standards that we kind of moved out of, they were ranked number 6 in the nation. Well, for me as an old coach, I always looked at something. I never saw anybody in the stands saying, we're number 6, okay? It was always, we're number 1. And that is what we have to aspire to be. Nothing less, nothing less than number 1. We have issues and we have problems. I believe I am the individual to do that, because I will carry, as I look at this, we'll carry on this from a business aspect, and one of the things I want to look at is bringing that business aspect. We need to have a complete audit of the Department of Education, whether we look at regulation, we look at personnel, we look at finances. We need to make sure that we clean out the barn, okay? Because it's getting rather full, as you know anything about a bureaucracy and a regulation environment such as that. We will work on that. We will make sure that we do not, I will act as a firewall to make sure we do not have unfunded mandates. Because unfunded mandates is something you were passed on down here in the buck. As far as looking at that, we need to stop right now, okay? We need to make sure that if we cannot afford it, we do not need it. That is simple. I appreciate your time. Please go to workforsuper.com. Okay, sure. Question? Are we right? Yes, sir.
As a parent of 2 middle school students and a host of foreign exchange students in the high schools, the one thing that has become terribly obvious is our school system is 2 to 3 years behind the rest of the world.
Question. Mike, you have a question.
The question is, when you're elected, what can you do to bring our children up to the standards where they're competing against the rest of the world? We need help.
Well, I think there's several things to look at. First of all, we need to make sure we have clean standards. Standards that actually allow the kids to do, the chief academics that they'll do. And they need to be addressed. I mean, math within Georgia has not been good in the past 10 years. I mean, we have seen a lot of changes with that. Yeah, math 1, 2, 3, 4, and so we have to make sure that we have stability in that. We have to allow our teachers, as I said, address those needs of the kids. We have to give them time to do that, and we will work through that process to do that. Now, when we say that, what am I going to do? I would like to have one caveat to that. What are we going to do, okay? Because this is a position that I come today, that I'm trying to build a relationship with you, okay? Because I will need your help, because it is a position where I have to go to the governor, I have to go to our legislature and our work, and I will continue to build that relationship. I will not be somebody you will see once every 4 years. I will not somebody that will leave the post in 4 years, okay? I will be here until the job is finished, okay? So that's the process. We'll at least start working on that. So hopefully that begins to give you some good answers for that.
Good luck.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
We're going to have candidate for District 11 State House, Rick Jasperse, come up. And obviously he's very welcome already, so he's got 2 minutes. So.
Oh man, that will happen on Thursday when we hear that. I would maybe change this a little bit. What happens 136 days from now? The general election. That's something, I was sitting here beside Alan and I was just thinking about what am I going to say. I talking about Rick and all that good stuff. But that's a serious day because, I have an opponent, a Democrat, attacking freedom, liberty, and all the stuff that these fine folks up here talked about today. And that's what I'm for. I'm not going to tell you all that stuff, but I think it's something we as a party, now that all the hanger-oners are gone, if you look around the room, these are our friends and neighbors that live in this region, that we've got to take serious. Because hopefully you take seriousness in my race, helping me financially and getting out the vote and all this kind of stuff that we'll do the next 136 days. We'll carry on to make sure that Georgia State is ready and that we do a good job working for the school superintendent candidate, our Senate candidate, and our governor's candidate. Because it's going to be a tough deal. It's going to get ugly, but we've got to really work hard to make sure we do this. A couple of things I want to mention. Steve Gooch had to leave. He's going to the Georgia Municipal Association. Our senator was here earlier. He's gone to speak down there. Charlie Bethel, our other senator from the West End, couldn't be here because his son is on a play. And he wanted to see his son, so I appreciate him for that. I'll recognize my wife, Marcia. She's already looked at me once today and said, I said something, we didn't go. But I also want you to think about me because my mother is very terribly ill. And we don't know if she'll make it through the week or not. I lost my dad in March. So it's real serious. It's a tough time for us as a family. But I appreciate y'all. And I really want to make sure you know that. Because I asked you support. I hope I'm going to be your candidate that really is your voice in the land. I've really tried to be. You're voting against some popular things because I know that the people here are against them. And I'm going to be appointed to a real important study committee next week that's going to address some really serious issues because the House leadership sees I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to go down there and get in a fight and stand up for values that are North Georgia's values, the people in Georgia's values.
And what is that important issue?
I can't tell you yet, but which one? Oh, the issue that I am a sponsor of the gun bill, and I hope you like it. And because it's been a tough battle. But I tell you something funny about the House Bill 60, the gun bill. On Wednesday, there was a film crew here from the Netherlands. They don't have guns there. Not only that I had it for about 15 minutes, I took an Appalachian gun on. If you never did Appalachian gun on, you got to go. Because Ralph and his wife was great. The film crew guys had never held a weapon. you know, been asking, well, how do y'all, I mean, the other bad things happen in Holland. I know that, yeah, well, we use baseball bats and not, they don't have guns. Well, you know, but they did a great job of promoting our freedom. We took him to Mount Zion Baptist Church. Ben Mott told him about liberty and freedom. And he got through talking to them about that taking guns away is something that'll never happen in America. Those film guys just stood there. They didn't move, they didn't flinch. And I'll get Ben, when they do this, I hope they put it in their documentary that's going to run in Europe. So they're talking about us and our freedom and what we've done here. And it's been really, I've got some Italians coming to Jasper in a couple of weeks. Donatella, somebody. And my first is going to talk to us about, you know, freedom and liberty. And that's how we try to change this discussion. They all want to talk about guns. They want to talk about you showing a gun. No, we don't go that way. We talk about liberty. We talk about freedoms, what it means to be an American. And we have a Constitution that protects those values. And we believe in it. They're just stuck. I mean, every one of the Germans that were here last month. So it's been a lot of fun, very interesting. My son is home with me this summer. He can't believe how much my phone is. And where people want to know about liberty and constitutionality, what we do in Georgia, standing up for what's right. And I've enjoyed doing that. I've been proud to do it. I've never had to go, like some of the people in the House of Representatives, leave the floor because they didn't want to have a hard vote. You know, I've never been afraid not to say no. And I've gotten some criticism in that building for doing that, but that's okay. You know, that's fine, because I represent you guys, and I'm proud to. But you can ask me questions anytime. You got my home phone number, it's in the book. You can ask us in the grocery store, we hope you do. And I sure need your support. And think about that 136-day thing. Because I think that's something that's bothering me a little bit right now, especially in our region, because somebody came up to me a minute ago and said, hey, you're not going to have a problem with that guy. That's the worst thing you could say, because we've got to make sure we, in the next 136 days, talk to our friends. Because the reason we have Obama as our president is your friends didn't vote. And I think that's something you got to put in your mind and take it to the bank, and you know that. And we can't have that. We can't have a Democratic senator because a bunch of Republicans would just have their hands crossed and didn't want to vote. That would be tragic. They don't bring it up, but I'll tell you the biggest thing in this senatorial candidacy right now is the Supreme Court. What would the candidate, those two men, they're not here now and I can say it, how would they vote? You better find out, because of all the things the senator does, to me, that's number one. What would they vote on the key issues that affect us every day and throughout our lives? That's what the Supreme Court will do. So that's what I asked him. That's what I was asking one of them there a minute ago. But keep that in mind. Appreciate your thoughts and prayers, especially the next couple of weeks, and I look forward to serving you again. Thank you.
On that gun bill, by the way, there were between 600 and 800 folks showed up just to watch the governor sign it. It was a pretty special day. Thank you for those efforts. You know, I was down there at the Capitol a lot this year, and there were probably more than any other chairman in the last several years. It's interesting how you make sausage down there. A couple of things, and then we'll close. I should have done this a little earlier, but I'm going to do it now. If you're a veteran, please stand up. Down the hall. Ron Johnson. That's your husband. Ron Johnson. I told him a while ago not to leave, and then when I wanted to introduce him, he left. This is your second vice chairman of the Georgia Republican Party and a veteran in his own right. They've just made an announcement on our Veterans Committee. They've raised money, and they've just already presented one special sports wheelchair to a disabled veteran that the state GOP and through Ron's efforts raised the money for, and they're fixing to award another one. It's just a really special thing that we're doing. Don't get enough credit for it around the state probably, but all the Republicans in the state need to know what we're doing. Thank you, Ron. I'll let you. David Perdue kind of beat me to the punch. But this little lady sitting right back here, stand up, little lady. This is my wife, Mary, and she does work real hard at our business and with our family so that I have an opportunity to run around the state and do what I do. Thank you. There's other couples sitting right here, Al and Joe Cochran. They were our guest up in Nashville and traveling with us today. Ron Johnson's wife, who allows him to do the things he does, is sitting right here with us. I'd like to ask all of you, if you don't mind, we about through?
We are.
Please stand up again. I want to tell you again how much I appreciate what you do. And I want to tell you one more time, those words that you need to keep in your mind between now and this fall, and that's go vote. But let me hear one more time, if you don't mind, if you're ready to go kick Democrat Fanny this fall, let me hear you. Thank you. Adjourned.